Before we begin talking about today's episode, in which we'll be focusing on the second X-Files movie titled I Want to Believe, a brief content warning. One of the characters in this film is a convicted paedophile, so there will be mentions to child abuse and paedophilia. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
I understand we have news, but not good news.
No, rather lame news today, actually. We've been talking up FileFest for the last couple of months. So that's the X-Files fan convention that was supposed to be coming up in August, which unfortunately I have to say supposedly because it was cancelled in the last week.
I can't say I'm totally shocked, but it is disappointing.
Yeah, it's just low ticket sales. Unfortunately, they can't physically afford to put the event on. So they said they decided to cancel now rather than wait and see, knowing that they probably still wouldn't be able to put it on and lose out on more kind of fees and things like that way. I do have, though, because FileFest was cancelled, Millennium After the Millennium, which is a website. You can find their Twitter at TIWWAMM. So that's Tango, Indigo, Whiskey, Whiskey, Alpha, Mother, Mother is their Twitter handle. So Millennium After the Millennium have released a never-heard-before interview they had with Chris Carter from their files, which is more specifically about Millennium.
Okay.
But I thought I'd mention it here because it's the kind of thing that X-Files fans might be interested in checking out.
Cool. I suppose then we have to get to this film that we've just watched again.
Yeah, so this is X-Files I Want to Believe, which was the second feature film.
Indeed. Directed by Chris Carter. Written by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz.
Released in 2008.
And 25th of July, no less.
Ah.
Yeah. Guest stars. So there's a weird mixture of people in here. Because we know who David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson are, and Mitch Pileggi.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we've got Amanda Peet, who played Special Agent in Charge Dakota Whitney.
Oh, she had a name.
She did. She was in The Whole Nine Yards.
Okay.
Identity.
All right, yeah.
And Seinfeld.
Ah.
Specifically the Summer of George episode. Next one down is Billy Connolly, and I keep forgetting that Billy Connolly, of course, he actually has an acting career. He's not just a stand-up comedian, but I keep thinking of him as a stand-up comedian.
No, he's excellent. He's done some really serious roles.
He has. He's done a lot of serious roles, and he's also done things like Return of the Musketeers,
Okay.
Indecent Proposal,
Fair enough.
Pocahontas,
Oh, yes.
Muppet Treasure Island.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Still Crazy, the film version of Lemony Snicket.
Oh, was he? I don't
Uncle
remember.
Monty.
Oh, he's Uncle Monty, of course.
Uncle Monty.
Yeah.
Hobbit Battle of Five Armies. Now, there's one you forgot.
I had. Who was he?
Dane.
Oh, okay.
Not the 9 o'clock news. Super Gran, for which he also did the theme song.
Aw.
We're getting to weird British ephemeral points. Third Rock from the Sun.
Okay. And of course, he's a comedian.
Columbo. And finished.
Oh, you're still going.
And House.
Okay. And he's a comedian.
And he's a stand-up comedian, which is what I know him best for.
Mm.
There's Exhibit, who we have not seen anything else he's been in, but he played Special Agent Mosley Drummy.
He's a rapper.
He's a rapper.
Yeah.
He doesn't have much of a role in this film other than to be skeptical.
He's certainly present.
He's certainly present. Callum Keith Rennie is Father Ybarra, who was in Love Actually.
Okay.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Hmm.
Can you remember who that was in that?
Wasn't... I'm trying to think now. Which one's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? That's the Johnny Depp one.
Yes. Let's go for Christopher Lee. Let's not say Johnny Depp. Say the one with Christopher Lee.
The one with Christopher Lee in it. Is he going to be Charlie's father?
Close, but no.
One of the other kids' fathers?
Yeah. Mike TV's.
Oh, Mike TV's. Okay.
Missing Link was voice only, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Umbrella Academy,
Okay.
where you would never guess who he was.
Is he going to turn out to be number 5?
No. think more abstract. He's not a number.
The monkey?
He is the monkey. He's also the motion capture for the monkey and the voice.
Oh, neat.
Phineas Pogo.
Oh, and he's a chimp, not a monkey. But yeah, cool.
He played a ghost in Bob's Burgers.
Fair enough.
But the one you know him for, or should know him for, and shame on you for not recognizing him immediately, is he's in Breaking Bad. Little known series. Very, very minor role.
I might have seen it before, sure.
Admittedly, it is a minor role, but he played Elliot Schwartz.
Oh, yeah, of course, got that. I can see it.
The last one is Nikki Acox, who played Cheryl Cunningham, who we've actually done before because she was in Rush.
Oh, okay. So, would you like to give us a synopsis for X-Files I Want to Believe?
Scully is now a physician at a Catholic hospital. She is treating Christian, a young boy with symptoms similar to Sandhoff disease. Not Sandhoff disease, apparently, similar to. I don't know. Mostly Drummer approaches Scully, asking for help locating her former partner, Mulder, who has been hiding as a fugitive for several years. Drummy states that the FBI will call off its manhunt for Mulder if he helps investigate the disappearance of several women in West Virginia, the latest of whom is a young FBI special agent named Monica Bannon. Scully agrees and convinces a reluctant Mulder to help. The duo are taken to Washington, D.C., where Special Agent in charge Dakota Whitney requests Mulder's expertise with the paranormal as they have been led to a clue, a severed human arm by Father Joseph Fitzpatrick Chrisman. He is a former priest defrocked for the molestation of 37 altar boys, and claims God is sending him visions of the crimes. A second woman, driving home after swimming, is run off the road by a truck driven by Jank Dakashin, who's an abductor. Stop that.
Would you like to try that name again?
Jank Dakashin?
It's close enough.
Is run off the road by a truck driven by Jank Dakshin, who's an abductor. Father Joe is again recruited for help with the second abducted woman. After a grueling nighttime search in a snow-covered field, he leads the FBI to what turns out to be a frozen burial ground of people and body parts. Analysis of the remains, along with the tracking down the recent movements from the second abducted woman's car crash, eventually leads them to Dakishan, an organ transporter in Richmond, Virginia, and his husband Franz, who is among the youths Father Joe sexually abused. During an FBI raid on the organ donor facility where Dashian works, he escapes, leaving Bannon's severed head at the scene. Mulder, who accompanied Whitney on the raid, chases Dashian to a construction site. Whitney follows and is killed when Dashian pushes her down an elevator shaft. Scully, seeking a resolution, asks Joe, who has not yet heard of the discovery of Bannon's head, if he senses that she is still alive, and he replies that she is. Discouraged but still determined, Mulder decides to investigate the incidents further. He drives Scully's car to Nutter's feed store in a small town near the abductions, as the human remains contain acepromazine, an animal tranquilizer. When Dashian coincidentally arrives moments later, Mulder sleeps out and follows him. Dashian notices him, however, and runs his car off the road. Mulder survives and tells Dashian, who exits his truck after the engine fails, a small compound in a former barn. Mulder enters, and the commotion caused by a two-headed guard dog brings Dashian out from one of the buildings. The compound is being used by an Eastern European medical team who's been murdering people and stealing their organs for years. The field where Father Joe had earlier discovered the bodies turns out to be their dumping ground. Mulder enters the building to find the team has been using the organs and body parts to keep Thomasin alive. At that moment, they attempt to place Thomasin's head on the body of a second abducted woman. Mulder tries to save her from the gruesome fate, but a doctor comes from behind and injects him with a tranquilizer. Helpless, Mulder is taken outside to be murdered by Dashian. Scully, unable to reach Mulder on his cell phone, contacts her old FBI superior Skinner for help. They trilaterate the phone's location and find Scully's wrecked car, eventually making their way through the snow to find the compound as Mulder is about to be axed by Dashian. Scully attacks and incapacitates him, while Skinner breaks up the medical procedure before the young woman is beheaded. Later, Mulder is at home when Scully tells him that Father Joe has died. It happened at the exact moment, Mulder notes, that Scully disconnected the life support to Thomasin's severed head. Somehow he surmises the two men's fates were linked by more than just visions. In a post-credit scene, Mulder and Scully head across the sea towards a tropical island in a rowboat, and wave to the camera.
Aww.
I don't remember them waving to the camera.
I may not have been paying that much attention.
Okay, so we'll be honest with one critical flaw with how we watched this film, is we had ordered pizza and it had failed to show up for 2 hours. So we were not in the best of moods at this point of the night.
We were quite hangry while watching this. I don't know if that affects the viewing.
It might not help. That said, I think it was, even after we actually got the food and had some food, the film wasn't desperately improving.
No, true.
Because my repeated refrain through the entire film was, why did you do this? Because this film took 6 years to come to fruition.
Technically speaking, it took about 4 years to come to fruition,
Fair.
from the point where Carter first started teasing that he was planning on making a movie.
Yeah, but it's you've got another shot of the X-Files. It's taking you 6 years to get to this point, and it's going to take you another 8 to get to the next shot of the X-Files. And I remember a review coming out at the time, which was, when everyone heard it was a Monster of the Week episode, everyone said, that's great. We don't really care about the conspiracy anymore, so Monster of the Week episode, Monster of the Week X-Files episode, perfect. And then it came out, and the first response was, you know those really funny episodes of the X-Files? Why was no one involved in those, like Darren Morgan or Vince Gilligan? Why were they not called upon to write this script? And instead we let Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz do it.
The obvious idea of making a movie out of a Monster of the Week one, I think, was actually quite an astute one.
Yes.
Because we are not hitting X-Files in its heyday. We are hitting X-Files 4 years after the series is finished.
6 years.
6 years after the series is finished. So you're at the point now where you can entice new people in.
Yeah.
So, people need to have a vague idea of who Mulder and Scully is, but to break away from the mythos and kind of do a Monster of the Week episode is the best way to both satisfy fans and entice new viewers.
Absolutely. And if you were enticed, because the pop culture legacy of the X-Files is large enough that you have a decent shot of knowing who the people you need to know about are. You know who Mulder is, you know who Scully is.
That's all you basically need.
That's all you need to go into it. And if you tried to jump into the X-Files on this film, you were gonna bounce off it really hard. Because I doubt this picked up many fans who weren't established fans.
No, I think some established fans were quite satisfied with it. But at the same time, I would not... We've talked about the best stepping on points for the X-Files going through the series. As this I would not consider one.
No. And I want to go back to the whole thing of you get Darren Morgan or Vince Gilligan, or Shaban and Gilnitz. Someone of that ilk could have come in, and again, X-Files pop culture is enough that you could have done a comedy film with Mulder and Scully in it, and it would have worked.
It doesn't even need to be flat comedy.
No, it just had to have...
Do it like
light.
one of the tongue-in-cheek ones, like Hungry.
Yeah, it just needs to have a light
technically
tone.
is a horror story, but it's got that kind of black humour running through it.
Absolutely. Something like that would have worked. And that was the criticism I remember at the time, because I remember we were watching this watching the things as it came out, because we started getting bits and pieces. We'll get into that in a second as well. But when it was on the build-up to it, and then it came out, and I remember very clearly, we said there's no point going to cinema, because the reviews were not kind enough.
No.
There was no incentive for what people were saying to actually go and watch this. We waited till it came out on video months later before even trying.
It was so hard to get a feel of what it was about from the early teasers as well, because in particular, Carter leaked this on-set picture of him holding a werewolf head.
Yeah.
So that gave completely the wrong idea. So we're thinking, it's going to be a werewolf movie.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You've said it's going to be Monster of the Week. Makes sense.
It would exactly what you'd want. Because you want... I've never actually seen them, but I get the impression it's basically... We kind of wanted Mulder and Scully to be Abbott and Costello. I mean, to be honest, we're going to do this.
You're about to get that.
We're about to get that.
Yeah.
But turn Mulder and Scully into Abbott and Costello in the films, and so Mulder and Scully meet a werewolf.
Yeah.
We don't need anything more than that. Just go with it. You could do it like Bad Blood as well, though, and just have make werewolves mundane, trying to fit into society, and as a breakaway person. Yeah, it's Bad Blood again, but
almost
it
like
worked.
you're describing an episode we're going to get in like 2 podcasts' time.
Yes. But also, I'm describing Bad Blood, though, because that would have also worked. Yeah. I don't think I'd have minded just a blatant Bad Blood rip-off.
I think I would have been unsatisfied if they'd wasted not even wasted, that's harsh. If they had a shot at a movie and made it an outright comedy one, I would have expected it to have some gravitas to it, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the best Monster of the Week episodes were also blackly comical. See Home, See Hungry. That kind of tone, Leonard Betts.
Yep.
I could take that sort of balance between the humour and the serious.
Exactly. But we get the most dour X-Files I think we've had since... God, when... Because there's not a lot of laughs in here.
No, at all.
At all. And I think one of the other problems is that there are a few direct nods to better episodes. So there's the pencils in the ceiling, which is a neat enough visual gag. But we explicitly mention Clyde Bruckman and... I can't remember his name.
Luther Lee Boggs.
Yeah. So mention Beyond the Sea and Clyde Bruckman. 2 fantastic episodes that the film pales in comparison to.
For your tone as well, Beyond the Sea is probably an interesting point to make. There were some criticisms, let's say, of the movie at the time it came out, which said essentially it had more of the feel of a thriller procedural like Seven.
Yeah, I can completely see that.
My feeling, as I said to you watching it, was it made me think of The Snowman. I know The Snowman as a film came out later, but it's got that kind of visual and that kind of tone to it.
It does.
But if you kind of think in terms of that, we have had procedural X-Files episodes like Oubliette, like Beyond the Sea.
Yeah.
So the framing of Beyond the Sea with the psychic giving these kind of visions of the future which pan out if you view them in a certain way, like his blood splashed on the Red Cross, was when Mulder's shot and his blood splashes up those kind of very distinct beams.
Yeah.
It's vague enough that the psychic isn't necessarily right, but puts that little kernel in your mind.
Yes.
Which is how I really think that we should have done Father Joe.
Yeah, and moving on from that as well, I think the procedural thing is a good call because it's one of the least paranormal episodes, and we've noted before that the X-Files has done mundane episodes. I mean, there are actually fewer purely mundane episodes than I remember. Because even the Pineapple Variant is kind of edgy because they've got a weird mutated virus thing going on in it. Otherwise, that's very kind of subdued.
I'd say grotesque.
Yeah, grotesque is ultimately grotesque itself doesn't even try to be supernatural, really. But I think the difference with both of those is they're set up with a supernatural mystery.
Yeah.
And the sting of this film, for one thing, comes after the credits, which just feels like a bad place to put it.
Yeah.
But it's not a mystery, because we see the two guys who tried to kidnap who do successfully kidnap this FBI lady at the start.
I agree. I would have framed it slightly different so you didn't see who was attacking her.
Yeah, it feels so odd to see them. And I vaguely remember there was, or at least there was supposed to be, two versions of this at one point, and I'm not sure whatever happened to it. And there were extra scenes put in for the home release that weren't in the cinema version.
I was going to save this, but since you've said it now, just in the last week, Chris Carter has made an announcement.
Oh no.
Saying that he is working on a director's cut, which puts all the missing footage back in.
It's not going to help.
But when you're talking about all these famous scenes that were reportedly taken from it, he says that the director's cut will have more of a horror bent, which was his original intent.
I can see that, but it's mostly going to be grisly surgery stuff, isn't it? We're talking medical horror.
Surprisingly, for the body horror that it is, the episode is remarkably tame.
Yes.
I say that as a horror aficionado. You see very little other than one brief shot of, I cannot remember any character's name in this, Big Bad, when they whip the cloth off him on the gurney and you can see the stitch marks.
Yeah. Franz. I was also going to say, I was surprised reading the synopsis to learn that the two guys were lovers, which is not something the film bothered to extrapolate.
What, you mean Franz and the younger guy?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's fine, but that didn't come across in any viewing of the film.
He referred to him as his employer. I just kind of assumed it was an employer-employee.
Yeah, and admittedly, you sort of go to, why is he going to such extents to save this person? But then I feel we have to step back a little bit, because the synopsis also kind of is trying to make out that basically they're just an organ...
Black market organeers.
Black market organeers. And that's grisly, but par for the course. I mean, this does happen to a limited extent in real life.
Yeah. We
kind of gloss over the more interestingly weird things, which is the whole head transplant thing, which is the actual impossible thing.
Yeah.
That you can't do at the moment. And they just have done it. And no one seemed to blink that they've just done the two-headed dog as well. I missed there was a two-headed dog in this film.
Was there?
Apparently.
Fair enough.
Synopsis. Like that, if it was
it must have been one of those guard dogs outside.
Yeah, but it went by so fast you barely noticed.
No, I didn't spot the two-headed dog. What do you know?
But there's no fixation on the fact they've perfected an impossible science, which things like synchrony made such a big thing of.
So we noticed, well, at least I started noticing about halfway through, that both of the women wore this med alert bracelet, which I'm not sure, it might be an American thing that people with blood types wear a med alert bracelet. I personally also have a rare blood type. We don't do it in the UK. But I did look up, AB rhesus negative is the rarest blood type in the world. In terms of rarity in America, less than 1% of the populace will be AB rhesus negative. So that's, mega rare.
Yeah.
Even in comparison with the other rare blood types. So that would equate, if we just said it was a flat 1%, that would be 3.3 million people. Which means that just over half that number theoretically would be male.
Yeah.
So why is he exclusively targeting women?
Well, there's some obvious possibilities here. and I don't know, edging into the whole Carter, I don't think you're equipped to deal with this. It's like, is this some kind of gender dysphoria on the part of this guy?
Yeah, could well be. But more critically, I'd say it's things like women are viewed as being weaker and more vulnerable. But that also questions why your first target is a flippin' FBI agent on that basis, who are not known for being the most vulnerable of people.
No, and I think we also want to dwell on that first bit as well, because I don't quite understand it.
Mm.
I mean, I don't understand a lot about the first FBI agent. There's more the fact that Mulder fails to save her.
Yeah.
There's this whole reason for being brought in. But so she drives home, and she lives in the middle of nowhere. Fair enough. And they're lurking outside, ready to grab her using nothing but their bare hands, apparently.
Apparently so. They don't seem to be armed.
No. And when she notices that someone is lurking just outside her garage, she goes for the gardening tools.
Yep.
We know that Mulder and Scully take their guns home. There seems to be very obvious other weapons she could be using.
I've got to assume from Mulder's behaviour as well, because Mulder also lives in Virginia, though I don't think he lives in West Virginia, that carry laws would be similar.
Yeah, but also I think for FBI there's exemptions for law enforcement.
Oh, I guess there must be, yeah.
So I don't understand why she's not using her issued firearm.
But she's also in the garage.
She could bolt into the house, yes.
Yeah, well, no, the house is slightly separate, but you can see through a window nearer there is a dog going ballistic.
Yeah.
Surely, at least she could gain access to the dog going ballistic, which would presumably help protect her.
You'd think.
Mm.
I don't get it. And no one really sort of says anything to Mulder when it's here's the head of the person you were trying to save.
I didn't even realise it was her.
No, I know. They don't make him a lot of it.
Until I read a summary afterwards, it's like, they kind of didn't make a big deal about that.
Well, we can also get into, I'm pretty sure that Drumley changes his stance on everything a few times, given that he's approaching Scully to find Mulder, and then spends the entire rest of the film being deeply skeptical of anything. They've
got Mulder on the vaguest of pretensions as well, because it's not the fact that Mulder is a genius profiler and they need his help, as per some of the earlier cases we saw, like Young at Heart, where they get him early in the series. It's not that they want to get him purely because they have a psychic on board that has led them to an arm, and they want him to kind of prove that the psychic is on the level.
Yeah, it's such a weird angle to take it.
Especially as Mulder's relationship with psychic has been kind of 50-50. It's not one of those areas that Mulder does believe outright.
No.
Because he was very critical of a couple of the psychics we've seen before, including Gibson Praise and Luther Lee Boggs, until they were fully tested.
Exactly. And he never believed Luther Lee Boggs anyway.
Oh, he did maybe at the very end.
Maybe at the very final end, but not until then. But I feel that we skipped over a bit. We need to go back to it a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll take you back to the truth. So, Cancer Man has just exploded. Yeah?
Yes.
Mulder and Scully are in a low-rate motel in Roswell, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
They are been told to get out of the country for their own safety.
Yep.
They're told to run.
Yep.
By Skinner, by Kirsch, by the lone gunman, basically everyone's saying, get out.
And it ends with Mulder indicating that he's not going to.
Yes, it does that, but he's still in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And we've got his newfound spiritual beliefs.
Yep.
Like, they're not in this film, for one thing. But also, where are they hiding?
They're kind of hiding in the middle of that big snowy field.
Which is in?
West Virginia.
Where did Mulder used to live?
Virginia. It's a different state.
It's a different state, but it's a helicopter ride from Washington. Also, though, I think it's terrible that they've got some of the details wrong. Because they sort of say, the FBI is prepared to forgive you for everything you did.
Because there's a current manhunt out for him.
But it's I'm pretty sure the military were the ones throwing the book at you last time. They ordered your execution.
But let's back up on the fact that there is a manhunt for Mulder, an FBI manhunt for him. Yeah, they're pretty thorough, to be fair. And at the same time, they know that Mulder and Scully are a thing.
Yep.
Scully is practicing in a Christian hospital under
Catholic.
a Catholic hospital under her actual name. She hasn't even, taken on the name of Mrs. Petrie again or something like that.
No. I mean, at least we've acknowledged that you can't do the stuff that you used to do in a lot of X-Files episodes. But Yeah, that she's practicing medicine under her actual legal name.
Yeah, I got to ask myself, is Mulder really that hard to catch? Or could we just not be bothered to catch him?
I think we couldn't be bothered to catch him. But again, the FBI didn't seem to care. The military wanted to kill him.
Mm.
And we're not even focused on that.
There was even that weird bit when they went to the FBI headquarters and it did the weird do sting over a picture of George W. Bush.
Yeah, then it panned across to J. Edgar Hoover, and I didn't understand what that meant.
No, I was wondering if it was some reference to that kind of unfilmed scene where the president was going to be in on the whole thing, but that's about the most generous thing I can put on there.
I suppose you could have that. I mean, he'd still be president at the time they made the film, or would Obama... No, it was January, so maybe Obama was in.
I think Obama had just got in.
Literally just got in.
Mm.
But when they were filming it,
at the time of filming, yeah, it would have been
Bush. I think one of the weirdest parts of this, and you mentioned to me the comics are the same thing, is season 10 is going to, like, pretend this film didn't happen.
Basically, yeah.
But it's also going to do the exact same thing of we're not going to handle how the truth left everything. We're just going to fudge those details.
Apparently, the intention was always that there was going to be a third film so long as this one was successful enough. And, dear listeners, it was not successful enough to warrant it.
No.
But the third film was going to be about the 2012 alien invasion.
Yeah, and given that then morphed into season 10, possibly in 11, we'll get to the faults of that.
Mm.
The film reflects really badly on Mulder as a person.
Yeah, basically.
Well, for so many reasons, but I was going for the first one of Scully has returned to her chosen field of study.
Yep.
She's back doing medical stuff. We're going to get on Scully in a minute, so just hold those thoughts, because there's a lot to say about Scully as well.
Yeah.
Mulder, as far as we can tell, spends his entire day sat in a den where he just cuts out newspapers and pins them to the wall.
Sure, why not?
He's got the conspiracy board from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and that's all he does. Why did he? I know Mulder's very hard to think of what he does when he's not doing the X-Files, but something. Is Scully okay supporting him like this?
The movie's title, I want to believe, at least in Chris Carter's eyes, was supposed to evoke the very difficult balance between religious belief and scientific theory.
I can see what he's getting at.
I think we could put this argument to Scully specifically in her subplot, which I'm sure you'll get to in a minute. But I feel it's something that, as you said, the final scene of The Truth left Mulder seemingly embracing religion as well.
Yep.
So you could have had I Want to Believe and Mulder get involved in this kind of concept of faith, especially when we kind of start contrasting Scully's views with Father Joe's views as well.
Yeah.
But we just seem to have completely forgotten about that for his character.
Absolutely. Mm. And also, I think you touched on it before as well, Mulder's functionally useless for what the FBI want him for.
Yeah.
But I mean, even above, you could have got him in for criminal profiling, and you didn't. You got him for his paranormal expertise. He doesn't offer any.
No.
All he does is believe in Father Joe at various points.
Well, let's talk about Father Joe yet, because I would like to get on that as well.
Wait, do you want to do Scully first or Father Joe first? Because both of them are minefields, I feel.
They're both very important characters to this plot.
Let's do Scully. We'll do our main character first. And Father Joe, we'll just go into extended. What the actual hell is going on?
Yeah. I would like to talk about Father Joe, but should we get the main characters
we'll do
out of the way
Scully
first?
Okay. So, we've noticed a lot of times, and it's a problem of all TV writing ever, when you involve scientists and doctors, is writers don't appreciate that you are a scientist of a field. You're not a general scientist, and if you're a doctor, you're a specialist.
Oh yeah, like if you're a pediatrician or an oncologist.
Yeah.
Anything like that.
Yeah, so Scully, has been referred to a few times as a doctor, and we know she actually has a doctorate in physics of all things, and she does have some kind of medical training.
Yes.
She used to do autopsies. That's a specific branch of
forensics.
medicine.
Yeah,
a specific branch of forensics. What did she do at the end of this film?
Brain surgery.
Brain surgery. A very specialized field that that's all you do if you get into brain surgery until you're too old, until your hands aren't steady enough to do it anymore.
Yeah,
I imagine.
I'm kind of very interested in medical science, as I've made out before. It sounds big-headed. I'm a trained first aider, but I find medicine and particularly first aid very interesting. I watched a documentary about brain surgery recently because I'm not squeamish and I was curious to learn how they do it. Based on what we see Scully doing there, I'm not sure that even is brain surgery, to be honest. It looks nothing like the kind of things I saw in that surgery, and I did some research into Sandhoff disease and discovered it's completely incurable. So I'm kind of with the priest on this one of why are we prolonging this child's suffering when his condition is untreatable.
Yes. But on top of that, there is very obviously, and of all things to drag back into this is William. That Christine is a proxy for William. That film doesn't even try to hide this, though Scully does deny it a few times. It's not subtle.
Yeah.
Where I kind of really lost a lot of respect for Scully, because I like Scully. I've always liked Scully, but she really makes this difficult in this film, or Chris Carter makes it very difficult. It's the whole, they have that sort of kangaroo court meeting to make sure that Christian's going to be put into a hospice and left to die because you can't do anything.
Yeah.
He's basically done for. And Scully just pipes up and says, oh no, there's a treatment. And then she goes and types into Google stem cell therapy. It's Scully, as a physician, you can't say I can totally treat this boy and then look up, stem cell surgery might work.
In my head, it's akin to that Simpsons episode where Dr. Nick gives a heart bypass.
Yes, yeah.
And Lisa's screaming instructions from outside. Thanks, little girl!
Because he's watching the tape and they've taped over it, and she's watching the original tape. Yeah, it's like that. But what was maddening is, in the meeting, Scully says there is a treatment, and one of the doctors says what it is. And so says, you're not suggesting X or whatever, and it's like, let the child just rest in peace for the rest of his days. And it's like, did Scully actually know that, or is she taking that person's comment to go and research it? And because she just prints off websites and starts stem cell research on the folders, who are you, Scully? This is not how you do things.
But interestingly as well, the camera keeps flicking to, when she's doing that research, bits in there about Russian head transplants.
Yeah, it's like,
but how is that coming up in the stem cell research? It's not the same thing.
No. We kind of touched on it a bit, but it's kind of about a Scully thing, is a YouTuber I watch called Jacob Geller, who does a whole load very weird video essays about a whole variety of different things. Did a whole thing about the whole history of head transplant.
Okay, that's interesting.
I will give you the link for it, and just the first attempts of it, what went wrong, what didn't work, why it's never worked, and why it's likely to never work, because it's horribly complicated part of the body to mess with.
Oh my, well, it's why we don't have things like eye transplants.
Yeah.
You know, you can transplant parts of the eye like the cornea, but a total eye transplant with all those nerves that would need to be connected and all the rest of it.
And it's kind of like, it's the scale of the operation and the time span you've got to do within make it prohibitive, as far as I can tell.
Well, any transplantation is high risk and has a high chance of failure. The more complicated the item is, the higher your chance of failure. And what's more complicated than an entire human head?
Yes. And again, that comes back to our point earlier of this should be the focus of the mystery, is that they are doing an impossible science. That's kind of your hook, not this other stuff.
Yeah.
And we nearly defy the Joe, but we'll do a bit more Scully first. And yeah, so Scully is doing this very weird crashing herself against the rocks of religion that doesn't feel like it needs to be in the film. Unless this was meant to be the focus of the film and it's been cut weirdly so it no longer is.
We've tested Scully's faith in the past, and it's always pulled through just on the basis of Scully accepts the fact that faith is something that cannot be proven.
Yeah.
It's weird now to have this one with Scully, who has knowingly gone to work in a Catholic hospital and seems to have an issue now with Catholic process.
At the same time, though, the priest feels odd for a Catholic person to say, let's give up on the child. I do understand the cost-cutting measure and everything.
It's not just a cost-cutting measure, though, but in Catholicism, there is a point where you put things in the hand of God.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's not just... I think you're thinking of Catholicism in the sense of the rights of the fetus over the rights of the mother is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
But there's also this idea of caring for people and accepting when it's the time to pass, because, you know, death isn't a scary thing in Catholicism.
No, that's true.
So there is the point where you would just concede and make the person as comfortable as possible, which is what the priest is getting at.
That's a fair point.
Scully is claiming that while there is a potential hypothetical treatment available, it's our duty as a doctor to do it, which again is an arguable point. But at the same time, is there really a treatment for this boy is what we've got to get on.
And
or is Scully prolonging the pain of somebody who is very shortly going to die? Could die now made comfortable, or could die in a year's time in horrible agony.
Well, the doctor seems to be suggesting that the process of this cure will also be agony for him.
Yes. I can't imagine brain surgery is nice.
Your
brain's got no nerve endings, to be fair. The brain itself won't hurt, but everything else.
Yeah. And then to finish off, because the last lingering bit of Scully will tie into Father Joe, so skipping past that for the moment. It feels very odd for the film to end on the note it does, given that Scully goes off to do one more treatment for Christian, and Mulder says, I'm going to take you far away from here when it's over. And we as the audience are left to infer that it worked. Because otherwise I don't think Scully would be going to a tropical island with Mulder.
I guess you got that inference from that.
That's all I can get.
But at the same time, the story's about faith, and I guess you've just got to have faith that it worked?
Well, I suppose so. And then I think we're also going to put a pin in this, because we're going to come back to this at the start of season 10 and say, so, they rode out to the tropical island. Then 8 years passed. And they started living separately.
Sure, why not?
Or Scully moved out, as far as we can tell. I think they both moved house. Okay, so we've wandered around it, so we'll take that last thread from Scully, which links back into faith and everything, and crashes directly into Father Joe.
Oh my, I have notes.
I will reiterate my original outburst of this is what you decided to do with the standalone X-Files film. This whole concept is what you wanted to do when you could have done anything except aliens. You could have even done comedy aliens. You could have had a Jose Chung follow-up. I would have been delighted. Sorry.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on this basis of why the hell we thought we need another story for the X-Files that revolves around a sidekick. Absolutely fine. What gimmick are we giving the sidekick? He's a paedophile priest. Carter.
Luther Lee Boggs was fine.
Well, he was kind of like a serial killer who might be faking being a psychic to try and postpone or cancel his execution.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thought process is it's what led to Clyde Bruckman.
Yeah.
You've got to have a psychic who either doesn't want the powers or they're useless for what they want to do in life. This is a very Philip K. Dick thing. He liked to give psychic powers to people who didn't want them and didn't have any use for them, or it made their life actively worse.
I thought the Clyde Bruckman one's a wonderful idea where he goes on to sell life insurance using this.
Well, that's all part of the joke.
Yeah.
It's like Darren Morgan, he did know what he was doing.
So our idea for Father Joe is, well, one, he doesn't want these powers, but two, it's not clear if it is an inherent psychic power or if it's a vision from God to help him save this girl.
Yes. At the same time, it fails.
He does indeed fail to save one of the two girls.
Yeah.
The one that he seems to have a connection with, in fact.
Yes.
Not only that, but there is some confusion because after they find the woman's head, he claims she's still alive. So I've got to assume it's because parts of her are still grafted onto Franz.
Yes, I think that's the only way we can sort of take that. Because the film certainly leads you to believe that he is legitimate and he has a connection to Franz, which is what will be used to discredit him ultimately.
So let's go on the basis of connection to Franz. So it turns out that we are told very early on that Father Joe has lost his career, something he's very bitter about as well.
Yeah.
Due to the fact he has molested 37?
38.
38 altar boys. And he is convicted. They know he has done this. He is unrepentant as well, just to make you detest this character all the more. And my god, he's high on the list of detestable X-Files characters. And the reason, therefore, that he has connection with this FBI agent?
Yep.
It's not that he's got a connection with the FBI agent herself. It's because he's got a connection with Franz, who was coincidentally one of the 38 people he molested.
Yeah. Yes.
Just, do I drop the mic there?
You can drop the mic there. I mean, it's well. I mean, I just realised as well, it's framing of the film is also really awful with Franz in particular, because we're going to have to assume that they're doing all this to save him because he's dying of cancer.
Yeah.
And so basically, if you cut his head off and put it on someone else's body who doesn't have cancer, assuming the cancer doesn't spread to his head, he's going to be okay.
It's like a reverse line of bets.
Yeah. However, why in the name of hell will someone who's got cancer that badly be at the crime scene to abduct the new body? Because how they present it at first is, it feels a lot like when she slashes him with the gardening tool.
The rake, yeah.
I was thinking for the longest time that basically she'd done him a critical injury.
Mm.
And that's why they had to do the whole head transplant bit. Like they were just going to steal her organs or something.
Yeah.
And then you get down to it, it's no, that doesn't make any sense. The injuries aren't nearly bad enough for him.
They're nasty, but not life-threatening.
Yeah. And also the fact, though, that they cut his arm off and tossed it out when he's got, like, 3 scratches in his palm for this rake.
Maybe that was just the test to see if this will work.
I suppose it could be, but that's a hell of a test.
Mm.
But you've got to be pretty sure you can do this before you begin.
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, you might have done it to the dogs, but what is this Vinky-Dink Gorgon Trader place doing?
Can I go back to Father Joe?
You can.
Right, Father Joe. So I'm going on my logic of how I would rewrite this and make it better. And I'm struggling to make it better because I can't get past the fact that he's a convicted paedophile that's supposed to be the hero. But at the same time, so let's say his connection to me does not make any sense. Because he believes he's having visions from God, which is the only way you can make this make sense. If God's trying to save this girl. First off, Joe and the villain never meet, so you get no catharsis, no sense of recognition.
Yep.
Joe only knows about this guy because Scully tells him.
Yep.
If you had it Oubliette style, so the woman was the person who Father Joe had molested, then you have the victim-predator link in the same way Oubliette does. So we could buy he was seeing what his former victim was seeing, he'd realised her life was in danger, he has shown some sort of remorse for what he's done, which he doesn't do, and now he knows he ruined her life, but he wants to do one good thing and save her.
Yeah.
That way I could make it work.
Yeah.
His connection is just a stage removed, and I don't get the logic of why he's having visions of what's happening to this girl when his connection is the attacker.
No.
Is also largely on a gurney for most of this and isn't actually involved in the actual kidnappings and transplantations other than taking the first woman. So yeah, correct me if you've got a better idea, Nick, because I am struggling.
Well, I'm not going to defend this bloody film. I just want to check something a second.
And of everything, why make him a convicted paedophile? There are some crimes you can excuse or empathise with. You can't empathise with Father Joe at all. He's just detestable.
I have one theory. I'm just looking it up.
Okay.
My one theory is Chris Carter wrote... He didn't, but... Anyway, my one theory was that Chris Carter wrote Beyond the Sea and for some reason felt it was too muted.
Okay.
Luther Lee Boggs wasn't objectionable enough to make this the contrast between someone who has psychic abilities and he's trying to help also. The horrible person who's trying to help, or horrible person has said the right thing for the first time, whatever that Onion headline is.
Yeah.
That would be my sole idea is this is Chris Carter's second try at that. Doesn't work because Morgan and Wong wrote that episode.
So your idea was that somehow Luther Lee Boggs, as a man who murdered his entire family, wasn't quite evil enough.
It wasn't dark. He wanted a stronger contrast.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not beyond saying that, given Luther Lee Boggs explicitly referenced that maybe this is where the idea came from, that Carter went back, looked at Beyond the Sea and said, you know, we could made him so much worse.
Mm. I'm just glad the fact that they apparently deleted a very awkward sounding scene that featured Father Joe in a children's hospital.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I also don't know why they bothered to have say he castrated himself. It's like...
It's a throwaway line. It's like, does that make the fact that you molested 38 kids better?
No.
I hate him. I absolutely... It's a shame because I actually rather like Billy Connolly.
Yeah.
But the character of Father Joe is one of the worst things I've seen in the X-Files.
Well, I think you said it's a waste of your Billy Connolly because you could do... obviously, he's had a much varied career. You can do a lot with Billy Connolly. He's
very versatile. Yeah. He can do comedic roles. He can do very serious roles.
Yeah. There was an opportunity there to do lots of things. I mean, you also kind of made me think at a point of the cast is largely worthless. Well, what I mean is, aside from Skinner, who shows up really late on for no good reason, given that, as far as we're aware, he's still assistant director of the FBI, so quite why he's in the first scenes when they show up at the FBI, I do not understand. That's just weird.
You think he would have wanted to see his favourite agents again?
Yeah, the only reason I can think of is they're trying to do the ambiguity of, did he die at the end of season 9 and then surprise, no, he's fine.
Which also raises the question of, how didn't he die?
Very good question. I don't have an answer.
Even if he didn't die in that room, he entered a room with a known super soldier who knows who he is and that he knows.
Okay, I think you're missing a critical problem here, though. The super soldiers have been written out of context. They do not exist.
Yeah.
It's like the military tribunal no longer exists. That thing that Mulder was sentenced to death for.
Yep.
In this state.
But there's still an FBI manhunt for him for reasons.
For reasons we do not understand. What I was getting at is, Billy Connolly is wasted in this role.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing fine for what he's got, but why use Billy Connolly for this?
That brings me to the criticisms of this film is, there were a lot of compliments done for the acting, which is largely fine.
Yeah, the acting's fine.
The cinematography, the music, largely fine. Nobody really had anything good to say about the script.
Weirdly enough.
So, Carter's contribution to this.
Yep, and Spotnitz.
But yeah, it's, as you say, we've got a bunch of good actors here, and they are doing their level best, but they don't have a lot to work with.
They don't have anything to work with. They don't have a point. Because Dakota Whitney, why kill her off? Because
then you get that
Drumley, but he's always
weird perspective shot of her falling
onto Reba. Yeah. But it seems it's a pointless death because it doesn't do anything for the plot. And Drumley is just the same character all the way through and doesn't change his stance, which is part of the course for FBI agents in the X-Files, but it's why have him here at all?
I can't even really argue that killing her there is women in refrigerators.
Because anything anyway.
It doesn't advance anything. Her death means nothing.
No. Mulder's even torn up about it, which you'd think after being out the FBI for like 6 years or something, you'd start to, you know, the old ingrained instincts will start to fade away. You're no longer seeing life and death on a regular basis.
No.
You haven't fired a gun in God knows how long. You think that would... I would use that scene if it's a woman in refrigerator's moment, sure, but you use it to sort of then drive home to Mulder, this isn't messing around like in your room anymore. This is real life. People will die.
Or even it has an effect on Exhibit's character, which means that they can't get the villain to confess or admit what he's done because Exhibit just shoots him down.
Yeah.
You have it impact in that sort of way.
Yeah. And no, none of that. And Exhibit just isn't there at the climax. Really weird.
No, it's just Skin Man, Mulder and Scully, which, to be fair, is how it should be, but...
But then why wasn't it that all the way through? I mean,
yeah.
Again, I don't understand why Rich Pileggi isn't in the film more. Or
he's not the one who brought them in or something like that.
I mean, I get that maybe he wasn't available, but it strikes me as a bit like Carl McLaughlin saying, I don't want to be in Twin Peaks Firewalk with me.
Yeah.
And then changing his mind halfway through production, so they have to really hastily write in some new scenes and then explain, retcon the other FBI agents of why they appear to be doing the thing that he should be doing.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of awkward. They do their best with it, but it doesn't quite gel together right. This one is like, we're not even trying to explain why Mitch Pileggi isn't in the film much. Despite the fact he really should be.
Yeah.
Because there's no sense of reuniting. I mean, I think it's like one line from Mulder about the fact it's Skinner and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, this should be a big thing. You haven't seen each other in 6 years. You are friends by this point. And no. Such a frustrating film.
I know.
I mean, we can get really petty as well. Those are the worst end credits I've seen in a long time.
Oh,
what the hell is going on?
Kind of seizure-inducing flashing photographs.
Yeah. If you've never actually bothered to watch this film to the end, I don't blame you. But how it looked like it seemed to be was, as the person's name comes up, you show pictures of the person. What very quickly we noticed was it might do that for a second, and then all the photos change to be other people who are nothing to do with the credit.
Just random set photographs.
So it's Chris Carter, there's a picture of Chris Carter, and now I don't know who that guy is. I think he's a second grip. And his Spotness and his Duchovny, but that's the catering team, possibly.
Yeah.
And my joke of, which you really laughed at, is we want to see a film with basically everyone had taken their name off of it. So it's all, never seen so many on Smithies. And I just said, even the catering department is on Smithee. And I want to find that in the film.
Yep.
Do we have much else for this film? I'm trying to think, because I think one of the other problems is that when you sort of look at it objectively, nothing happens. Or so little happens, and the actual interesting bit is the last 15 minutes, and it's so wasted by that point, and you don't care at all anymore. Because there's like 3 action moments? 4? No, okay, there's a few action moments. There's anytime someone gets run off the road to steal their body, which still feels like, you can break into people's house and chloroform them when they're asleep so you don't risk injuring them when you've run them off the road to crash into a hay
Especially
bale.
when essentially we're taking these women to be used as produce.
Yeah.
You'd like to think it's like, yep, we've got the body for transplant. She's got 18 broken bones because I rammed her off the road with my snowmobile.
Yeah. It's like, what is going on? And also, though, her kidnapping is so weird because he spots her in the pool, and there's an extended bit where he's got his head underwater, and for a moment you're thinking, oh, okay, he's like the alien hybrids or someone else with supernatural powers, and as far as we can tell, no, he's just a person. And he's sort of just eyeing up the girl who's got the medical alert bracelet. I mean, would say one thing about discontinuity people is that he apparently is gay. That's some very kind of voyeuristic shots of her underwater.
Yeah. I'm not sure you can view a medical alert bracelet like that. I'm pretty sure you have to, like, take them off to see what they say.
Yeah, because it might not be medical alert. It could just be a bracelet.
Well, usually, they're quite distinct medical alert bracelets when you look at them. But usually, it's like a band and it just has the caduceus on one side. And if you turn it over, it'll say, epileptic or something like that underneath it. Just so, a paramedic has an idea of why you might have collapsed.
Yeah.
So presumably, I'm assuming that these ones exist for blood types, is you'd flip it and it'd say her blood group on it.
Yeah. But, so he observes her in the pool. She goes to a car. He drives out the parking lot. She drives out after him, catches up with him on the road, and tries to overtake him. This isn't how you kidnap someone. You follow them. You don't get them to follow you. That's insane. Yeah. How does that work? I mean, admittedly, sure, yeah, that's a fantastic tactic if you get it to work, but I don't think that works. I understand why the school ship is like it. I would have thought they would actually have a problem with the middle of the film.
There's a large chunk where Scully, in particular, is very angry at Mulder.
Yeah, and they're just fighting, and they're sniping at each other, and it's...
But then they kiss and make up and row their way to a tropical island.
Yeah, and... I don't know, you see them in bed together, there's a fair amount of kissing.
I thought the scene where they were kind of snuggling was actually quite nice as well, where they're just in bed and talking about what's worrying Scully.
Yeah.
Where he says, oh, you should have told me about this sooner and all the rest of it. It's quite a sweet little intimate scene.
But they put up William, so that just destroys everything.
For you, it's a major part of both of their character developments.
I know. It wasn't obvious at the start, and it's kind of more in retrospect when you sort of go with, oh god, Scully's found a proxy William.
Yeah, in Little Christian.
But I feel that comes back to the major problem with the X-Files ongoing thing as well, is that despite being given your clear cut-off points and you can start again and just let the bad stuff go, because you've correctly assumed that Super Soldiers was a dead end.
Yeah.
And we've just left that behind. We're just going to just...
not mention it.
Yeah. And I think most people would have been fine with that. I mean, I don't understand why William is a point you feel you have to bring up again, because you could have quietly left him by the wayside and never mentioned him again as well.
Much like they largely did with Emily.
Yeah. The film also didn't touch on Doggett and Reyes, which I understand for being an introductory thing of, if you try to explain who they are, that's going to confuse people.
Yeah. Keep it small.
Keep it small. But again, why? So, in the blink of an eye, or 7 days, 8 years will pass.
Woo! Time travel!
Time travel.
We were so excited.
I don't know if we were excited. It's kind of the whole, hooray! I hope they do it right.
Ah, young, naive Kim and Nick.
It was only, it was a decade ago.
It was a decade ago,
it was a decade ago. Or it'd be a decade ago when we got the news, I think. So, yes. Next time is My Struggle, because it's just My Struggle at this point. The numbers come later. And Founder's Mutation.
Yep.
As usual, if you like to defend I Want to Believe, and no one ever does, so, and the thesis of your argument isn't Mulder and Scully a fantastic couple. We want the actual film.
Defend the plot.
Defend the plot. Our email address is thingsgettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and do hook me up if you'd like me to promote anything at the start of the show. Now I can't just plug FileFest, I need some things to talk about. So you can find us on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42, on Mastodon at GetStrange42 at universedon.com, or on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice right now, I do have a stream on Twitch TV under the name AdverseCamber42. I'm live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMT, where I'm currently in Blood Season, where we are playing Blood Omen Legacy of Kain and Bloodborne.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where for as little as $3 a month you can have access to our bonus episodes, including our 5-part Let's Play of the X-Files game from 1998, starring Craig Wilmore. I forget who the actor is, and most of the rest of them. But Mulder and Scully are in the film, in the game, just about.
And you got Skin Men and Mr. X and Cancer Man.
And Cancer Man.
The Lone Gunman.
The Lone Gunman, who Byers is shaved in the game, which is so distracting when you see it. It's like, what? Byers, you look wrong. What's wrong with you? Anyway, all accessible for as little as $3 a month. We've also got reviews of some of the books, so check it out if you like and help us keep the lights on.
Woo!
Our theme music is a vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Computech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
I want to believe.